Bienvenue dans ce 6e épisode de Transition, un épisode un peu particulier.
Puisqu'il est enregistré en anglais.
Okay, let's go then. Transitions is the monthly podcast that explores sustainability alongside competitive setting and with the industry's leading experts.
Within the Transitions podcast, we'll be talking about developments, innovation and progress, but also how far we still have to go when it comes to sustainability in sailing.
Transitions is produced by Imoca, and this episode is brought to you with the support of 11th Hour Racing.
11th Hour Racing is not only the official sustainability partner of the Imoca class, but most importantly, it is inspired by the dynamics of sailboat racing and the urgency for climate action. 11th Hour Racing is committed to the health and the resilience of ocean systems, supporting innovative, sustainable solutions in the maritime industry and beyond through sport, storytelling and grant-making. Transitions is led by your hosts, Pierre-Yves Lautrou
and Imogen Dinham-Price. Hi all and welcome to our 6th episode of Transitions. Hello Imogen.
Hello Pierre-Yves.
Today we are going to be talking about the offshore racing scientific programs and the work that goes on behind the scenes to push forward ocean rights. With us today we have Lucie Hunt, Ocean Impact Director at the Ocean Race. Hello Lucie.
Hello.
And we have another Lucie, Lucie Cocquempot, Oceanographic Observation Coordinator at Ifremer. Hello Lucie.
Hello. Hello Pierre-Yves. Hello Imogen.
And we have, as usual, we have Imogen. Imogen, all of these actions built around the scientific programs are becoming increasingly important. Can you tell us what Imoca is doing in this area?
Yes, of course. So it's been nearly 10 years since the class Imoca signed its first partnership with the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. And this took place during the COP21 in Barcelona. But since then, the partnership sort of went forward and it grew, and we started working alongside partners like Ifremer, OceanUps, and Météo France, which has really allowed the skippers to go forward and deploy over 40 scientific instruments since 2019. And more specifically, we reached a record number of instruments being deployed during the last Vendée Globe. So we arrived at 25 instruments being deployed during this race. And by deploying these instruments and embarking different systems of measure, skippers are able to really improve scientific knowledge around ocean health and ocean data, and that being like areas of temperature, salinity, microplastic levels, and a lot more. So we really value our scientific program and the partnerships that we've made, and it's really allowed us to have a greater input into the scientific community.
All right. Lucie Hunt, you're working as Ocean Impact Director at the Ocean Race. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role?
Yeah, great. Thanks very much, Pierre. So my role as Ocean Impact Director really is to help drive positive impact through the race as a sporting platform. So we have a number of different programs in our Racing for the Ocean programs around ocean literacy. So that's like ocean education, and we develop a program in 13 different languages for youth and young people. And then and that's all about the ocean, getting to know the ocean. Then we also have the summits program. So these are more high level conferences where we try and nudge policies and decision making in different countries that we're working with and share commitments and nature-based solutions. And then, of course, we have advocacy and our campaigns around the ocean, raising awareness how important the ocean is and how we need to protect and restore it. And you see that through the racing boats as well within our race, but also in every host city that we go to and stop at. We also have like a ocean festival, which helps raise awareness. And then, of course, our science program, which I know we're going to be getting a little bit more into around our onboard science program. So yeah, my role really is to work with the team on creating the best strategy going forward for all of these different programs and any new programs that might be interesting for us to be involved in as a sporting event, as a round the world sailing event, and to see if there's new partners as well that can work with us on these programs to help drive that positive impact for the ocean and ocean health.
Okay, I would like to talk about the scientific instruments that all the skippers embark on board the boats. Is it in the rules? How do you encourage them to have the instruments on board? And
Yeah,
are the skippers who embarks the instrument, are they voluntary?
Yeah, no, so it's part of the agreement with the teams that they're part of our science program, our onboard science program. So they do have to get involved in science on board. So that's a really positive thing. But I just want to say that it's been an amazing transition from the 2017 race. I've been with the race since 2017, where, you know, teams are hesitant about putting this equipment on board. And now, before we know it, they're already coming to us to ask us, can they have this equipment on board, whether it's in the race or outside of the race in some other expedition or another race. They want the equipment on board. So it's been a really positive transition from the first time we were putting equipment like the packs on board and the microplastic samplers. There's been a real positive transition. Yeah.
What instruments are deployed?
Yeah, sorry. So we have microplastic samplers on board, and then we have science packs on board as well that measure a number of different ocean vital data that I'm sure Lucie from IFRIMER can tell you more about. But then we also do eDNA sampling on board, so environmental DNA. And then we have we also deploy data buoys as well. And then some of the boats have their own equipment around measuring plankton and taking microscopic photos of plankton species as well. So it's quite a well-rounded science program for on board the boats.
Imogen?
And I think so my question comes on quite nicely to Lucie from IFRIMER, and it's what is the role that IFRIMER is playing within all of this? And just as Lucie from the Ocean Race just told us that, could you give us a little bit more detail as to what these instruments are really looking for and what kind of data we're trying to gather?
Well, first of all, I would say that our role, together with the class Imoca, is to design a catalog of scientific projects for all the sailors, all the skippers that have this willingness to contribute to a better understanding of our ocean. And basically, when you want to know more information about the ocean, you just have three ways of collecting information. Whether you're a scientist or you're a citizen or you're a sailor, you always have those three ways of collecting measurements. You either deploy autonomous measurements, you collect samples, or you carry out continuous measurements. And that's how we get some information. And together with the Imoca class, we design a catalog of projects that could be used or that could be deployed during some races. So we have some floats, the famous Argo floats. Those are giant thermometers, that you can deploy. And they will oscillate in the water and take measurement every 10 days of temperature and salinity. And that helps us understand the thermal island circulation of the ocean. The main driver of ocean circulation is temperature and salinity. So that's something that we can do with sailors. We can also collect samples for eDNA or microplastics, and that will help us to better calibrate our models, because we have the theory and we need in situ data just to make sure that the theory is right. And then we can also carry out continuous measurements of temperature, salinity at the sea surface. And that will help us to calibrate our satellite data. With satellites, you can have a full vision of the oceans, but you still need some in-situ measurement at the end of the day to make sure that the satellite is correctly, set and monitored.
And you spoke really briefly about eDNA. Could you explain to us what is eDNA? What are we looking for? What does E stand for within eDNA?
Well, I may not be the right person to tell you about that because I'm a physical oceanographer and we don't run the eDNA program with sailors. It's another research institution, but it's good because we have partnerships then and we can all contribute to a better understanding, whether from the physics, the biology, or the chemistry. eDNA is a way to, we do have eDNA researchers here at IFRIMER, but we don't have citizen science protocols for that. because it requires a lot of maintenance and data treatment is quite demanding for that. But other institutions have developed lighter processes. But it's a way to have an idea of the biodiversity of the ocean, because you can collect some very little DNA traces within the oceans to get an idea of what were the macrofauna in place, or what were the microzooplankton that we could have in a given region.
Lucie, one more question. How really useful is this partnership to the scientific community? I mean, it's not only com and PR stuff. Is it really useful for the scientifics?
Yes, it's really useful. But
Very French question.
but I must say that it was the sailing community that initiated the contribution. And it's really interesting for us to have this example of the society knocking at our door, and ask her to improve our processes or to play with them. That's a really strong cultural change for our scientific community, to be able, to open our minds and to think that maybe we could collaborate. So it was really a strong push, and I think that was really useful for our community, because we need to share more about our results, about our love for the ocean, but also our concern about the situation and how it's evolving. So it's really good to have those ambassadors. Then it's really useful because those keepers, those sailors, can go in remote regions where we don't have the means to go, or we can't go that often. It's really valuable for us when we have the ocean race or the Vendée Globe going all over polar regions. That's very important data for us, because that's very strategic to understand climate change, to have information from there. And we couldn't go with our research vessel there that often. And then it's also a way to rethink our processes with very first-class engineering teams, and to try to develop low consumption measurements, and to try to have lighter protocols. So then we can really democratize the data collection to a wider audience, not only professional sailors, but also, recreative sailors.
Okay. Imogen?
Definitely. And I think that just moves us on quite nicely to also what you were kind of also doing recently. I know that this year France is celebrating the Year of the Sea. It's quite a nationwide initiative to highlight the richness and the crucial issues around the maritime sector. But it was also the year where the United Nations decided to hold their Ocean conference, which took place in Nice about 2 weeks ago. And you were both at this conference. And what was it about this conference which was so important? And if I'm not wrong, maybe Lucie from the Ocean Race can correct me, but ocean racing was one of the only sports which was actually present at this conference. And via our sort of scientific programs, what was the importance of being there, and how can that really drive the momentum around these subjects?
Yeah, thank you. And I suppose the UN Ocean Conference is started back in 2017, and it's a high-level conference with the UN member states coming to it to try and drive change around the Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is life below water. So all ocean-orientated decisions and movements can be brought in this sort of stage and arena. And some of the big movements were around marine protected areas, the High Seas Alliance, deep sea mining, things like that. Those were things that were being discussed on an international level with the member states, but it's also an opportunity for organizations to showcase their work, to network with funders, to network with other organizations to help drive change and see where the synergies are. So the Ocean Race were there. We on a number of different levels, and yes, we were probably one of the only global sporting events there that we saw anyways, and we were at many different events there over the 2 weeks, and there were some smaller organizations definitely there, or some sports clubs there, but as a global sporting event, the Ocean Race seemed to be one of the only big events there. And we were there really to showcase how a sporting event can get involved and use its platform for a positive impact when it comes to ocean health. So we were there with Lucie from IFRMR and some other scientists from Goose and some citizen scientists who are sailors as well, showcasing how you can use a racing platform for science. So we had a science and sailing event on in the green zone there, which was great, and lots of interest and lots of interaction from sailors, not professional sailors, but regular sailors as well, wondering how they can get involved in the citizen science side of things. And then we held another event where we were showcasing how sports can be a convener for ocean impact. So bringing together a number of different entities that then can drive this change. So we had a number of our different stakeholders at this, as well as somebody from a football club actually as well was there, showcasing how they have changed, have used their platform for change as well. So I think using these sorts of events is really important to engage different audiences in the ways we're doing things differently as well. Also, whilst we were there, we signed up to be a friend of the High Seas Alliance, so supporting the High Seas Treaty, which is close to being ratified. We still need 10 more countries to come on board, and hopefully that will happen in September. And that high seas protection will be seen to start then in after September. So and of course that's an area where our sailors are for plenty of the time, and that's where we want to see more protection happening as well with the high seas. So yeah, we were there on a number of different levels, and it was great to be there and meet other ocean colleagues and ocean advocates, and really, try and drive further change for the ocean whilst we're there.
Brilliant. That's excellent. And Lucie, from IFRMR as well, we had our event also, a side event at Imoca. But what was IFRMR's role specifically at Imoca this time around?
Okay, I think in such conferences, you have 3 zones or 3 objectives, and they are physically differentiated by colors. You have the green zone to engage and to inspire, and you have the blue zone to decide. That's for the government and the head of countries. So obviously, IFRMR was more in the green zone to engage and to inspire. And I was there personally, and I was very happy to attend event together with the Ocean Race and also the Imoca class, in order to raise awareness and to demonstrate that various players from different backgrounds could, coordinate their efforts in order to propose concrete solutions in order to preserve the ocean and to better understand the mechanisms. And I think it was great, and it was really well received by the community, not only by government stakeholders, but also philanthropic organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the civil society, because we had a lot of people coming to our meetings and events, not only from the scientific world, but from schools, from general audience. It was really great to demonstrate that together we were proposing solutions in order to address the issue that we have right now with the climate and the global change. And that was our mission.
I think also for us, when we meet the scientists like Lucie and other colleagues at these big conferences, and we hear from them how important the data is, it just helps to reinforce the work that we're doing. It is really good. We do hear it, but when it's said at a global conference, then it adds a lot more value to it as well, So I think it was important, to hear it from the scientists there too.
Okay, question for both of you. I'd like to talk about the general public and the communication. Within the ocean races or Imoca strategy, what importance does the scientific communication play for you when interacting with the general public? We've been talking about stakeholders, philanthropic, and so on. So, but what about the general public?
Yeah, for us, that's super important. We have a fan base of something like 2 million people. So it's obviously something that we can use to the best of our ability to try and get the information out around the ocean. And I think science communication is a really important one to get right. And for a long time, I think it's been not the best, so we right now are actually doing science communication workshops with some of the best communicators in the world around how best to communicate our science program and the data that's coming out, because we want to make sure that our fans are understanding it at their level, because everybody's at a different level of understanding when it comes to science. So let's get it out to everybody at their level that they can understand it. So yeah, currently the ocean race is undergoing looking at how we're communicating science and how we can do it better. We've been doing a good job in the past because, we've been hearing from different people that they never understood that, and now they do, but there's always room to improve. So we want to make sure that we engage a number of our different stakeholders, from our partners to the younger people, and then to obviously the sailing fans as well. So that's super important and a very good question, Pierre. Yeah.
And Lucie from Ifremia?
Yeah, it's a valuable partnership for us because those communities are the best ambassadors of the sea. They are heroes. They have a strong fan base and they have great social and media communities. And we don't have that as a research institution. So it's all about building bridges between us, the scientists, and labs, in front of our computer, and those people that knows how to reach the audience and to tell stories about the ocean. And it's really important for us to convey that the message that science is important in our society, that evidence-based decisions are essential for governments. And in a way, having the opportunity to speak about science on large media events, it's really important for us.
Definitely. And that kind of also, we've been talking about it a little bit throughout this episode today, but it's really should we know that the skippers are now conducting science at sea, but can the general public as well, can they get involved? And by all of this communication, have you been seeing that there has been a little bit more influence on the general public so that they can get involved and take part in citizen science at sea? And does the scientific community accept this? I don't know. I don't mind whichever Lucie wants to go first on this one. But yeah,
We're working on that. We still have to work on our processes. And when a citizen science program is successful, then usually you have too much data for your research team. So we really need to think about the processes, because we want to have everybody satisfied at the end of the day, not only the researcher, but also the people participating. And we need to provide feedbacks and to tell them why and how we can use this data and what's important for us. So we still need to work on that. Basically, there's a huge demand, and the demand is increasing with the popularity of the races. But yeah, and thanks to those initiatives, that puts this issue higher in my institution's agenda. Like, usually it was just a side project, citizen science, initiatives. But now, since the society, the audience is asking for that, it's becoming a top priority in our institution.
and for you,
That's great.
the ocean race.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more interest in it now. So even just from our events at Enoch, when we were there, we saw that there was a lot more interest. And so then there's smaller programs where more sports people can get involved, whether it's kayakers or sailors. There are different programs that people can just put on a small device, and then the instrument will send the information around the ocean temperature or whatever it might be to the science institute that's doing it. So there's a number of different programs, and you can even get different apps on your phone where you can get involved in different programs as well. So yeah, really good stuff happening.
And just on that and sort of a level, would when we talked about the instruments that were being deployed earlier, these are instruments that are being taken on board for 60-foot vessels or a knocker sort of size. But if the general public want to get involved and they want to take on board instruments, well, maybe they're on a smaller vessel. Are there other instruments which are more adapted as well to maybe a vessel size that they could take on board, which also collect data? I don't know, Lucie from Ifremia actually had an idea around that.
Okay, maybe the weather buoy would be the easiest instrument to start with because it's light and easy and just you deploy it. And it's also really rewarding because then the data can be used in order to improve the weather forecast. So you can definitely see an impact of your action. But then you have more demanding protocols, and we need to think collectively about what we need. Um, we need a huge diversity of information from the ocean. So uh, I wouldn't recommend one and only instrument. We need a full range of sensors and platforms in order to collect information. Biological parameters, physical one, chemistry as well is also very important. And I think that's a topic we need to address within the scientific community. And it's quite a challenge for us because in the past, we tried to collect as much data as we could. It was just a matter of getting more and more data in order to understand better. But now, with the sustainable goals, consciousness that we have, we need also to think about the right amount of data that we need, the right quality, and the right number, not to overproduce data that we couldn't deal with. So this is a big transition that we're doing from collecting what we can to collect what we want in order to do the good science. And we have complementary tools, not only in situ observation, but satellite observation and modeling. So we will need to work on that and to try to define what are the most critical information that we need right now. But there are many.
Okay, just a question to finish, maybe. What would be, to both of you, what would be your final objectives for these scientific programs if we think about the Horizon 2030, for example? Who wants to answer?
That's
No?
not an easy question. Go ahead, please, Lucie.
For us, our objectives are to continue the science program and make sure that all teams are involved in it. For 2030, that was one of our objectives, but we're already there really now. So that's good. But then it's also, I think, important that we keep innovating and like testing and contributing. So innovating and testing the equipment so that it becomes more resilient and it can be used and the data is better and better for the science community. But then also seeing what else needs to be done. Does more marine mammal data is more marine mammal data needed from the mid-Atlantic when we're doing a transatlantic? How can we contribute? Do we need to start contributing to seabirds and data on seabirds, because we have eyes and cameras out there? Let's get involved and do things like that as well. What other science can we contribute to, that isn't pulling too much from our sailors, but instead of just being amazing sports heroes, maybe they can be more ocean stewards and sports heroes, as well. So that they can be involved more and more in contributing to science and helping when it's so important. And we keep hearing from the science community how important it is. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
And Lucie Fröbi-Frémère.
Okay. So before looking ahead, let me look back and see what we've done so far. Raise awareness of the team, checked, it's done. We talk about science on every village at the start of a race, so that's super great. Thank you for that. Attracting public attentions, done. Because we have great communication programs together, we have great feedbacks from the civil society, so thank you for that, and we are very happy about that. For the next years, what I would like to see is sustainable partnerships. And when I talk about sustainability, it's not just only the financial sustainability, although it costs a lot of money, to process the data, to develop protocols, to put instruments on board. So of course, finance, budget are important. But when I talk about sustainability, is about how we could design together, to co-design the society, sailing world, and the scientific world, sustainable partnerships, innovation that are not only good for the environment, but also for the people and the activity. because I don't want to ask too demanding protocols to sailors. I just want to have the right amount of effort for the right amount of data, for the right amount of money, and of course for the sporting project, the sport activity and research. I want also that the science could be an ally and not something that you do but that's not damaging your research at the end of the day.
Okay, Imogen, maybe one last question for you.
Okay. And so globally with these programs, you were mentioning, Lucie, you want to be able to make all of the different elements sort of like fit together so that it works for everybody within the project. What are your reactions from the skippers? How do they voluntarily come forward, and do you find that very easy to interact with them with the projects? Some skippers we know do have voluntary actions towards science. What are the kind of reactions that you get from the maritime world when you start working with them?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, before there was more hesitation, whereas now we have the sailing community coming to us, asking us for the equipment and wanting to align it with their own campaign. So whether it's if they have a water campaign, they might want to do the different science packs and have the ocean data, or if they are very much into circular economy or into recycling and things like that, then they might be looking for the microplastic device as well on board. So they want to align it with their own campaigns. And I feel that the sailing community now and the skippers are they're happy to have the equipment on board. I suppose there's some concerns on energy, how much energy does a device pull? How much energy does it need from the human to actually work it as well? So the microplastic sampler would need more than the science pack and things like that. So, and I suppose with the ocean race, what's good is that we do have an onboard reporter, and there's a team. So the onboard reporter is often looking after the science equipment on board the boats. So that does help because it doesn't pull too much energy from the team then. But in general, the science packs on board, they're an autonomous device that they don't have to regularly look at. The microplastic samplers, depending on how many samples you're requesting per day or per week, then that needs to be changed out for the samples. So yeah, and then obviously deploying a buoy, you unwrap it and you put it off board and all of that. So there's different ones, but I would say long answer to what could be shortened is that the skippers and the sailors are happy to take the science equipment on board. Yes.
Do you feel there's a new generation of sailors who are more involved with that kind of subject?
I think so. Yeah. I suppose even from I've really only been with the sailing community and professional sailing community for 7 years with the race, and just seeing that transition, I do believe so. Yeah. There's definitely a transition there. Yeah.
And Lucie from Israel?
Yeah, I would say the sailors and the skippers are curious, interested, but also quite demanding. And this is really okay. This is really good because they're not just service providers or technicians for research institutions. They're real partners, and it's good that we can engage a dialogue not only at the start of the race when we ask them to deploy something or to do something, or not only when we publish a paper. That means like 5 or 10 years after the deployment, but we need to have this, day-to-day interactions to share the changes that we're observing and the difficulties that we're facing. And I think that maybe the new generation of sailors, of skippers, is really keen on understanding better the evolutions, and they generally have good knowledge about the meteo systems and the modeling activities that we can do. So it's really a partnerships that I'm
Okay.
longing for. It's really nice. Finally, we can have this conversation, and it's really great.
And I think having that interdisciplinary approach with the different mindsets really adds value to the whole program as well. You know, when it becomes more resilient, lighter, the engineering, all of that. It's a really good approach to science. Yeah.
Okay. Then a massive thank you to both our Lucies. It was quite strange sometimes for taking part in today's episode. Thank you, Imogen. And we'll be back next month in French, hopefully.
Definitely. Hopefully.
Merci
Yeah,
beaucoup.
I think so. Merci. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
See you.
Merci.
See you guys.